Why are parking structures particularly vulnerable to structural damage compared to other types of buildings?
Yeah, well, because most of them are exposed to the elements, number one, right? So, the different levels are outside, or they're open air, meaning like the sides of them are open for snow and rain. Cars drag in ice that melts off, and the water gets on there, penetrates the concrete and starts to rust the rebar. They get salted, they get snow plowed, so they get beat up and weathered throughout the years from use and abuse.
Did you know that when parking structures are poorly maintained, they can lose up to 30% of their lifespan? This costs millions in preventable repairs and can put public safety at risk. Despite this, they're often treated as background infrastructure rather than a strategic asset. Today, we're joined by Scott Baryiewski, owner and president of South Shore Construction. He's an expert in structural maintenance and repair with a specialized focus on parking structures. With hands-on experience in the field, Scott brings invaluable insights to the topic that's often overlooked. That is, the hidden dangers and warning signs within parking structures. From hairline cracks to major structural threats, parking facilities face relentless wear and tear that can lead to costly repairs, or even worse, catastrophic failures if not addressed in time. In this episode, we're going to be exploring the key indicators that your parking structure may be at risk and what property managers and AEC leaders can do to stay ahead of serious issues. I'm your host, Rebecca Swaby, and this is the AEC Leadership Podcast. And with that, let's jump right in. So, Scott, can you tell us a bit about your background and your current role as president at South Shore?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Scott Baryiewski, and, I own South Shore Construction. I'm the president of the company. Been doing this is my 20th year. So in October 17th is the date. It'll be 20 years of
That's
doing
amazing.
it. Started it. Yeah, thanks. I got into the business straight out of college. The company was originally started by my uncle back in the 80s. And the timing just happened to work out that when I graduated from college, that his partner had that he started the company with had retired the year prior, and he was looking for somebody else to come in to take some of the burden off of him, as well as learn to run the company. And there's a lot that happened in between in terms of learning and growing and learning how to be responsible for a business and running projects and how this all works. But I won't waste your time with all that. But 20 years later, here I am.
That's fascinating. And did your uncle seek you out specifically, or was it more you that was putting up your hand to jump in and help him out?
You know what? It was actually him that sought me out. I'm not sure what it was. I guess he saw something in me that he thought I might have what it takes. And it kind of worked out for me too, because I think when you come out of college, it's like you went to college, but you don't always know exactly what you're going to do coming out. And I saw this as an opportunity where I could learn something and grow versus, you start going to college fairs and you go around these different things. You're like, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. And so when this opportunity came my way, it was something that was more certain versus something else where I wasn't really sure what the career path was going to be. I went to school for business with like a concentration in finance at Montclair State University in New Jersey. But, I wasn't quite sure. And when this came to me, it sounded like a good opportunity to pursue, and turned out pretty good for me so far.
Okay, so you started your education on the business side of things and then jumped into a very technical business. What was it like catching up on the technical aspects of what you do?
So that was the hardest part, right? I mean, operating a business is super hard, right? But you learn that through doing business, right? Just doing the daily things. The hard part is I came in, and outside of the fact that I did work several summers and even winter breaks in college for the company doing like field stuff, I was mostly just a laborer doing some odds and ends. They would send me over to clean this up and do that. So I didn't really learn technical things. And so that was a concern that I had. So I literally, I bought books. I would look at publications from different, industry related websites and things like that. I would read data sheets about products And I did everything that I could. I would ask a lot of questions of people in the field. How do we do this? And why did we do this? I'd go to the field to see the things. And so it just, from my curiosity, I learned it all and picked it all up.
Hmm. And I'm assuming your uncle was an expert as well. That you could pick up a lot from him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, he certainly passed a lot of knowledge to me. So I don't want to, take anything away from him. Certainly he passed a lot of knowledge. He started out in the field before he created the company, right? So he had field experience, and then, obviously, many years of running the company before he brought me on. So I learned from him. But what I'm saying is, like, there's things you could learn from people, but also different. I mean, I remember all the way back then, it was a little embarrassing to admit, but it was like they would even use technical terms about parts of a building that I didn't even understand. So after we'd have a
Right.
conversation, I'd have to go and Google, like, what is a coping? What is a cornice, to
Yep.
even understand what part of a building it was, because I didn't know.
Yeah, I know that feeling. You
Yeah.
hear something and then late night trying to figure out, okay, what were they talking about? So
Yeah, yeah, but
that's
I
great.
took it upon myself to learn the things, and so that I could understand and become good at what I do, and just kept going from there. And I mean, even to this day, I try and learn as much as I can about whatever I can.
Oh, that's great. And so the company specializes in parking structure maintenance and deficit detection. Tell me about that. What's the work like?
Yeah, so basically, we're fixing older garages that have been aging. They have deteriorated elements in their concrete, in their steel, in their different expansion joints, sealants, waterproofing systems, drainage. So the company specializes in going to these older garages and replacing and or repairing these deteriorated elements, and essentially making them both waterproof and structurally sound at the same time. The majority of our work comes through engineering firms who also specialize in this, who we have a trusted partnership with, that they recommend us to the clients that they put plans and specs together on, and then we bid on them and perform the scopes of work.
Okay, fantastic. And why are parking structures particularly vulnerable to structural damage compared to other types of buildings?
Yeah, well, because most of them are exposed to the elements, number one, right? So, the different levels are outside, or they're open air, meaning like the sides of them are open for snow and rain. Cars drag in ice that melts off, and the water gets on there, penetrates the concrete, and starts to rust the rebar. They get salted, they get snow plowed, so they get beat up and weathered throughout the years from use and abuse.
Yeah. And are there any of the early warning signs that signal deeper issues when it comes to parking structures? What are some of the long-term consequences of ignoring these signs?
Yeah, so certainly cracks. If you start seeing cracks in your concrete, especially if there's structural elements like columns, anywhere where you see exposed rebar, where the concrete is kind of, the term is spalled, where it's like kind of cracked off, and you see exposed rebar, that would be something that's important to look at. Severely rusted steel, if it's a structure that's supported by steel, steel beams and columns, you want to be looking for that. And those are the main things. I mean, there's many other things to look at, but I mean, just at a surface level, if you start seeing things like that, those are some signs of things that you want to get repaired in the near future.
Hmm. And the owners of these assets, do they typically have a maintenance schedule that they're putting into place annually? Or is this the kind of thing that when a problem comes up, then you guys get called in to respond?
So, in an ideal scenario, they would have some sort of a maintenance schedule. They would have money budgeted off to the side to take care of these things. But what happens is, the unfortunate part of my business is, like, I do the work that people don't want to do, because there's nothing completely fun and sexy about it. It's not like, hey, here's an office building and we redid the entire lobby, updated everything, we added amenities to it, right? So this is like a cost that nobody likes, because they just want people to be able to park their cars there
Right.
because they need it, but they don't actually want to spend the money to fix it. So in an ideal scenario, they would be proactive, but 9 times out of 10, they're reactive, and if anything, they're very slow to react, which allows the problems to grow. And over time, problems grow at kind of an exponential, more rapid rate. And so probably by the time we're brought in, the problems are way worse than they could have been had you tackled it earlier on.
That makes a lot of sense. And do you see part of your role as advocating for being more proactive in terms of managing these assets?
Absolutely. I mean, I talk to owners about this all the time. What I actually find is the people that are the most proactive are the people whose properties are the best maintained. They tend to rent them out for higher prices and or sell them for higher prices. They're easier to get rented because aesthetically they're better. They look safer. It's a more inviting environment to come to, and that's the more ideal scenario. I try to explain that to people, but at the end of the day, you're fighting a difficult battle because of the fact that it's something that people would prefer to not have to spend money on, and oftentimes, unless it's an actual pay garage where the business is, people have to come there and pay to use it. If it's an office building that the garage services an office building, or a condominium building where it services the residents, there's no separate income stream from there. So it just feels like a cost out of your pocket with no additional gain.
That makes sense. So what you're saying is the parking garage can kind of be a bit of a litmus test to the quality of maintenance for the whole building itself. So if you're a tenant, take a look at the parking garage if you're
Oh,
scoping out a
absolutely.
place.
Totally agree.
Oh, that's interesting. Um, do you ever encounter resistance to the recommendations that you're making?
Yes, most of the time related to money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it all surrounds money. I mean, some of the things that people put off in spite of knowing all the risks and all the hazards and the additional cost that it'll be down the road, the fact that, they don't need to spend $1 today, they're willing to roll the dice.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
I think the other thing that I come across too is I feel like the holding period for many owners of these commercial properties, not necessarily in the condo sector, but when you get into like office buildings and different things like that, I think that they always think that they're going to sell the building before they have to go do these repairs, so they defer them. And then what ends up happening is some years later, when they haven't sold it yet, for whatever the reason is, whether they couldn't sell it or whether they decide to hang on to the asset, they're now compelled to put the money into it
Mm-hmm.
because, but at that point in time, it's a lot more money than it would have been had they handled the problem sooner.
Yeah, and it's a bigger problem at that
Yeah,
point
it's a
too,
bigger
higher
problem.
risks.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly.
what do you do to overcome that when you encounter a client that might be resistant or thinking about kicking this down the line, or even, yeah, the prospect of selling the building in a couple of
Well, I mean,
years?
I try to explain to them that, that it will cost them more down the road, and that these problems will grow more exponentially, and some of the issues that come along with it. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, I can't force somebody to do it. I mean, it's their asset. They're protecting their asset. They're investing in their own asset to maintain its value. So I try to express that to them. I can't make them change their minds. But I mean, the one thing that I found that's very helpful is actually providing photos and evidence of some of the problems, because sometimes you have these owners of properties that they're not people who are really on site. So sometimes when you're giving them dollars and they're not seeing the severity of certain things, it's easy to just poo-poo it as like, it's not important. Again, it's the parking garage. We don't need to spend money on the parking garage. We have
Right.
other things to spend money on, or I don't want to spend money on it at all. But sometimes when you can show them exposed rebar and different severe problems that are happening around there, it kind of opens their eyes to the fact that they have to actually open their wallet.
That makes sense. The picture says 1,000 words.
That's
And
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy to just go back to it and share the picture around the table. Speaking of that, are there any other tools or technology that you found to be really helpful?
Yeah, I mean, one program that we use that's been pretty helpful for us is a program called FieldWire, and it's a program that is meant for contractors, and I know some engineers use them as well. But it allows you to upload plans, specifications, different files if they're related to the project, and you can upload photos to it, and it's stuff that you can use on the go and be able to share things, basically in the moment. For example, if my guys are out there at the site and I need to mark something out on a plan that I need them to go get me more info on, I could literally do it, and within seconds they'll be able to see it come up on their end and understand the location of the on the plans and where to go to provide it. And at the same time, they can go to that location and take a picture, and that
Yeah.
picture will upload seconds later, and I'll be able to see some of the stuff and then transmit that over to an engineer who might need this information in order to create a detail or give more guidance on something that's happening. So that's something
Hmm.
that's pretty useful for us.
I could see how that could be extremely helpful, especially with newer staff or maybe junior staff that need some
Exactly.
advice. They're out in
Yes.
the field, they need to get a quick perspective on something. Is that one way that they use it as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Totally. I mean, like there's times where, we'll place, you could maybe take a detail and place it in a certain location so that people understand like this detail applies to this particular location, so that they know, understand what needs to happen in that place.
Yeah, good. Are there any other trends in materials, designs, technology that other leaders should know about when it comes to extending the life of their parking structures?
you know I always try and look out for that and try and be on the lookout. I mean, certainly I'm trying to figure out how to use AI a little bit more. I mean, you hear about it all the time, and I try different things, and it's smart, but it's not there exactly as far as I've been able to see so far for our uses. Sometimes I try to upload plans and ask it questions like, can it do some sort of a quantity takeoff of certain things? It doesn't really come back that well. But as far as materials, I see a lot more carbon fiber strengthening of concrete anymore. That's where you're essentially like using carbon fiber materials and gluing it to the exterior of the concrete to give it additional reinforcement on the surface of it. But I mean, that's basically it as far as I see. A lot of stuff has stayed pretty stable throughout the years, and minor tweaks in products, but not major, game changing sort of things from what I come across.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how long does a parking structure generally last? Like, what's the max min sort of lifespan that we're talking about here?
So I don't know if there's a maximum. I mean, I think that that might be a better question for an engineer, but I want to say they might say 50 years. But I mean, there's garages that are older than that. It really comes down to maintenance, right? So
Yeah.
it's not. I
Mhm.
don't know. It's like what's the life of a building, right? You can go to New York City and see buildings that are 100+ years old, right? It really comes down to maintaining them properly from the elements.
Yeah. Okay. And are there any other preventable measures that we haven't talked about yet that you want to share that you'd like owners to know about when it comes to extending life?
I mean, so there's many different products that are used to, let's say, waterproof the concrete and protect it from deterioration, and those are certainly useful and recommended by both contractors and engineering firms in this industry after the repairs are made, because it really comes down to more. It's not just the cost of doing the work, right? There's a lot of disruption when it's related to parking garages, because you have to shut areas of the garage down, you have to change traffic patterns, and most of the time there's not excess spaces, right? So the biggest challenge that we have is a garage has X number of spaces. Well, on any given day, most of the time, most of them are filled. Well, now they need to start giving up spaces in order to allow us to close the areas down to do the work that needs to be done. And that can be anywhere from a few days to a few months, depending on the severity of the repairs. And that disruption is a huge headache for anybody. And oftentimes the biggest challenge we have is the people say, well, where am I going to put our cars, right? And they have to go figure that out. Street parking, make a deal with some sort of a neighbor or a township parking lot, parking garage. But that's one of the biggest things, is where do we relocate the vehicles to? And so that's why it's important to, not only repair your parking deck, but to be able to protect it afterwards, to try and extend the period of time between when you have to go and do repairs like this again. So, that's what I would say related to that.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't even think about that angle, but staging a full parking garage repair must be a nightmare sometimes for the owner.
It absolutely is. I mean, that's their that's probably their biggest challenge, and the thing that I always find that there's the least amount of thought goes into that, right? Because it's you get all the way to the point where like you're ready to do the job, and sometimes people go like, "Where am I going to put the cars?" And you're like,
Right.
"Really? We went through this whole bidding process and this whole thing, and you never thought like, where am I going to put?" And usually that number is somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's say, 50 to 100 cars. Because when you do a parking garage repair, typically you have to close the parking at two levels, because if you're working here at the top, you don't want anything falling down to the level below and falling on top of a car or a person down here. So whatever you close up here, you normally close directly below it as well. So, I mean, even when you say 50 cars, it's 25 here and 25 here equals 50.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think that newer parking garages are being designed with that in mind to have almost an additional space or extra staging area for those 50 cars?
I do not think that at all. I think that there's zero thought that goes into future repairs. I mean, I see the way they build some of these high-rise buildings these days, right? And the design of them is so, so beautiful, and they have the building is kind of offset at different floors,
Hmm.
and it sticks out, and it has all these things. And
Yeah,
I look and I say, nobody put any thought into how you're going to access that in the future to fix portions of the building, because just like parking garages, you have to fix the facades of buildings as well, right?
right.
And you just know that the design didn't take into account something that needs to be fixed on the outside of the building 25, 30 years from now, right? And they're not doing that with parking garages either.
Yeah. You make a strong case for collaborating more with people like you in the early stages, even at the
Yeah,
design stage. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you ever get pulled in? I'm just curious when it comes to designing new structures. Do you ever get pulled in right from the beginning?
No, I don't get pulled in from the beginning. I mean, some of the companies that we work for, in the on the restoration, I mean, they also do new design, right?
Right. Yeah. So they have that
Which kind
insight.
of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think what happens is, even if they design additional space in the beginning, I think over time it gets used up, because building owners, they like to maximize their income, and if they even if you built extra space in there for future growth, either the population growth kind of catches up to it, or they they find ways to maximize their dollars, and they rent out the spaces to local buildings that have a shortage of parking, and
Right.
so now they find a way to fill it up and
That makes
monetize it.
sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gets
So I think
maxed
it
out.
doesn't matter how many levels, you're going to end up filling it up and having a problem.
Hmm. What's your favorite part of your job?
Uh, you know, I kind of like, you know, figuring out like the coordination, like how we're going to do the stuff, coming up with solutions to, like how the different phasing is going to go, how the traffic's going to flow, and just kind of organizing the job.
Yeah. It sounds like it can be one of the most challenging parts.
Yeah, it is, and that's what makes it like interesting, right? Because it challenges you a little bit. And then I think what happens is also like you become good at it, and you tend to like what you're good at.
Yeah. Is there a lot of collaboration with other stakeholders in that process?
Yeah, I mean, typically what happens is you find out a little bit about what their needs are and what their usage is, and you find out, sometimes things are busier on a weekend, sometimes they're busier during the week, sometimes there's certain areas that are busier or slower in the garage, and so you kind of take a little bit of feedback, come up with an idea and present it, and then allow them to look at it to see if there's any feedback on it. And a lot of it is really adapting as the job goes along, because there's like just like in any construction project, there's unpredictable things that are going to come up, and you can't wait till you have every single thing sorted out before you go forward. So you kind of come up with an initial plan, you move forward, and then as you see a problem arise, you adapt
Yeah, that's
in the
good advice.
process.
Yeah, thinking more about getting to, I don't know, what would you say, 70, 80%. And then when you're actually out there,
That's
that
right.
last mile. Yeah. Okay.
That's right, and that's actually one of my biggest challenges. Sometimes is there are people that almost want to know like the whole plan, and I have to explain to them like I can give you a plan, a reasonable plan up front, but there's going to be some level of changes as we go along that I couldn't predict now, and we won't know until it happens. And you just have to trust that we're in the business, we do this for a living, we know what we're doing and how to do it, and we'll adapt as it goes along, and we'll communicate those changes as well. But that you have to have some level of trust that we know what we're doing, and that we just need to come up with an initial plan. We need to go, and then you have to trust the changes that we make are for the benefit of everybody involved to make the project go smoothly.
Yeah, the experience is almost in how well you react. In perfect situation, you can perhaps make a perfect plan, but at the end of the day, it sounds like your expertise is really in being able to react strongly to any changes or pivots that come up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any stories of major pivots or unexpected things that have come up that you think our audience would be interested in hearing about?
Nothing comes to mind right this second, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a good question. Uh, I wish I had something, off the top of my head, but I really don't have anything good for you
Just the
on that
standard
one.
stuff. Oh, that's fair.
I mean, like, listen, there's like, you know what it is? It's like there's things literally every day on every job. I mean, because in construction we're responsible for so many elements, right? It's like, the labor and the schedule and the weather and the deliveries and so many different things that we have to react to, that it's like one story doesn't even like
It
stick
sounds
in
like
my brain
you've seen
because
it
it's so
all. You've
ongoing.
just
Yeah,
seen so much. Yeah,
that's right. And
that
it's
makes
just like
sense.
so normal for me. I don't even like have like one story like that's such a big story that I could share with you.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, in the beginning, we talked about how you got started in this business. Tell me a little bit about your pathway to becoming the owner and how the job has changed over time.
Yeah. So basically, when I started out, I just started out doing the most basic things. It wasn't like, yeah, I had said that my uncle started the company, but it wasn't as if he said, "Here, you're an executive in the company." It was basically, "Here, we have do project submittals." And back then, we used to have to do physical submittals, right? So I had to, and we had to print out a bunch of copies. We used to have to submit like 6 or 8 copies. So I used to have to, print out a bunch of data sheets, organize them, staple them, cover sheets, sometimes color charts, make it all nice, put it in a package, send it out. And I just started out doing that, right? And during that time was the time where I was like, what are these products that we're using? And I would read the data sheets. What is it? What do you use this thing for? What's the application? What's the prep work? And then, that's what I did, right? And but I got curious about everything in the business, right? So I got curious, and I would ask questions about the estimating and trying to understand how they estimated things, and I would understand a little bit about how the billings worked and how the payroll worked, and just over time I started, because I took a curiosity, I started getting involved in a little bit of each one of those things and learning how each one of them worked. And the more I learned about it, the better I got at each one of those things. And, over time, my uncle started stepping back as I took more of not only a leadership role, but I learned more about the business and he could trust me more. And there came a certain point where I was so important and so involved with the business, and he had taken a step back to the point where he said, you know what, he and I made a deal where I would become a partner with him. And back in 2022, at the end of 2022, he retired. And since then, I've been running the company, 100% by myself. But prior to that, I had been running it, with him, mostly, just checking in periodically to understand the how the company was doing and what was going on in different places. But I was making all the decisions and operating everything, and he was kind of more of a partner from a distance.
Hmm. Okay. Do you have any advice for others looking to do something similar?
Yeah, I think that you have to want it. You have to be curious. You have to be willing to learn. Continue to take chances and improve and show that you care. Be responsible, right? And if you do that, yeah, I mean, really, what it comes down to is you have to become an important element of the company. I mean, that's what I ultimately did. If you said, how did this happen? I would say I became so important to the company because of all the things that I was able to do and the clients that would call and ask for me, that it would have been a huge problem if I would have left the company, which is one of the things that led to me being an owner of the company is that, I actually became such an integral part of the company that, me not being here would have hurt the company quite a bit.
Hmm. You really embedded yourself into all the processes and systems. And not only that, it sounds like really took a lot of initiative to learn about the business and every aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important for people to get involved in the business generating end of things too, right? I mean, certainly if you're helping to bring in business, that makes you important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Scott. This has been a great conversation, and I've enjoyed having you on the podcast today.
Yeah, same here. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to be on it with you.
Okay, take care.
All right. All right.
Please remember you can find all of the show notes from today's episode at aecleadershippodcast.com. There you'll find a summary of the key points that we talked about in today's episode, as well as all other links to resources, books, or websites that we mentioned.